sports right now. We'd like to welcome into studio Auka Gecheo, GM of Supersport. Thank you for making time for
Thanks,
us
Julie, for
on this final.
Me.
Thank you on this final Sunday Live of 2013. And as we look at what we need to do to transform the sporting sector in Kenya, let's take a look at where we are now. So let's start with the achievements, the highs and lows of 2013 for you.
We can go on for the whole show talking just about the highs and lows of 2013, but I'll be brief and very quick about some of the key highlights for me. I think football has really continued to grow in this country, which is a big plus for us. I know the last couple of weeks, so there've been a lot of sentiments on newspapers to the contrary. But if you look at the big picture, if you look at how the league was won this year, Gor Mahia winning after 18 years, that's huge, and I'll talk about that later. If you look at all the football tournaments, all the cups and the leagues, they were won by different clubs, shows you that these clubs have come back up there. If you look at the numbers that came back into the stadium, there have been cases of hooliganism, and we'll talk about that in the lows, but numbers have really come back into the stadium. That's really, really impressive. If you look at how Sam Nyamwe and the FKF organized the FKF, the FA Cup, the Go TV Shield, that was very well done. Talking about the lows, and you go to how Sekafa was done, really took the shine out of a fantastic win by Harambee Stars. Harambee Stars have gone up, I think, 15 so odd places in the rankings, FIFA rankings, which is really great. Amrush is doing some good job with the boys, and they played a fantastic final in the Sekafa Championship. That was an amazing win, great game. And like I said, the debacle around that then takes that shine off a fantastic performance by Harambee Stars, and they must be commended for that. And consequently meeting the president and him promising to ensure that they're well taken care of. If you look at athletics, we went to Russia and came back with 3 golds, 3 silvers, 1 bronze. Fantastic performance. Eunice Sum, she comes across as one of the fantastic highlights for me this year. That was really, really impressive. If you look at the world marathon majors, we really, the women blew it away. Priska Cheptoo being only the second woman to take that championship. We lost it in the men, the overall performance, but then again, Wilson Kipsang came through for us, breaking the world record, and which is really impressive for us. Cricket, a bit of low for them. They've struggled to qualify for the...
For years, it seems to have been a real challenge to grow cricket in this country.
Yes, I mean, if you look at how we are struggling at the moment, it makes 2003 look really, really distant. It looks distant in any way you can look at it. We're really at a low in cricket. We didn't qualify for the T20 World Cup. Really struggling with the ODI qualification. For me, it's really heartbreaking seeing us trying to get the Tikolos back to come and champion that campaign for us to qualify for the ODI World Cup. We dropped the ball somewhere in terms of nurturing young players and bringing in young players to come and play through
We'll come to the issue of leadership in just a moment, and I want to talk about rugby, talk about football and cricket, particularly with respect to leadership. But let's talk rugby first.
No, rugby.
Your thoughts on rugby?
Very impressive. They've actually matched up to what they did in 2009, getting to the semi-finals of the Rugby World Cup Sevens in Russia. Very good performance by Mike Friday and his troops. For me, a small disappointment in rugby, in the sense that the way Mike Friday left was not the proper way to do it, especially for the rugby fraternity.
Why did it happen? A lot of people still asking what happened. And
that just comes back again to the issue of leadership. I think my thinking is, from where I'm seated, is the rugby leadership has always been known to do things in a particular way, to be above board, transparent, and that seemed to lack. We saw a lot of shenanigans coming in this year. We saw a lot of boardroom pull and push this year. One member of the board saying this, the chairman saying the next thing. One day Friday is sacked, the next day Friday is back in office, which the greatest disappointment for me is that is not the rugby culture. And it's bad to seeing such kind of politics coming or shenanigans coming into the game.
Well, let's talk about the fact that one of the things 2013 did see was the passage of this sports bill. It was assented to earlier in the year. Have you seen any changes? You know, is it being implemented? Could this be the answer to the challenges we're seeing in sporting leadership, and particularly, you know, let's talk about football, and you know, Nyamoya has been under siege. You know, it's no secret there are big issues there. What's the way forward? What do we want to see in 2014?
The sports bill is really what I can call a fresh of breath air into the administration of sports in this country, the management of sports. And if followed and implemented in the proper way, it's really going to see a lot of transformation in how sports is run in this country. We're talking about injecting professionalism, rationalizing constitutions of federations and unions, bringing in the proper people to run the federations, limiting the terms of the people running the federations. Very important. That is really, really key in terms of bringing in fresh breath, bringing in new ideas and just growing the sports, and not just recycling the same old people time and time again. And we really look forward. I know there's been an issue about the pace of implementation, but from where I'm seated, I'd rather we get it spot on, we get it correct, than rush to see that it's been implemented. But for me, once this is implemented, a lot of the malaise that we are seeing right now in terms of running of our sports federation and our management of sports in general, I believe that will be a thing of the past. Talking about football, and yes, we say that Sam has been under a lot of has been under siege for the last couple of days. Yes, it's true. Let's face it, he's done a few things right. I mean, he's brought back his FA Cup, the Go TV Shield now, 48 teams participating in it, and just getting it going. He's gotten his first division competitions, a few of the games on television. And importantly for me is that he streamlined the FKF Division 1, which was competed by 49 teams last year. It's now 20 teams. I mean, there's no way you can have a competition being competed by 49 teams. That streamlining is very important in terms of creating that pyramid right from the grassroots levels to the premier competition, which is the KPL in this case. So I think he's done a couple of good things there that he needs a pat on the back. But then again, if you look at, for example, the Sakafa debacle, which is really what has brought up all the siege that is under right now at the moment. A few things that we didn't get right, and I hope FKF in general have taken the lessons from that on how not to run an event or how not to run a competition. We're talking of bidding for other competition like the African Cup of the Nations and the Under-19 competition in Africa, and I hope we've really taken the lessons out of that. But importantly is that Sam and his team at FKF need to now repackage themselves. And I think this siege that is under from the media houses should give him an opportunity to then not come up flaying his arms and saying, no, that's not the truth, and getting accusations and counter-accusations, but instead to reflect and look at them and say, what are the positives we can pick from here? Right. What is the positive criticisms that we can pick from here?
Constructive engagement on the way forward.
And then show Kenyans that really, at the moment, FKF is determined to change the face of the game. And this gives him that platform to say, look at himself and his whole committee, his whole national executive, the entire FKF body, look at yourself, look inside and say, great guys, these things have come up. We need to address them. The proper way of addressing them is saying, what positives do we take out of here, and how do we rectify, and how do we give Kenyans a good football platform for them to enjoy?
Let's move on to the big question for 2014, and perhaps what bothers a lot of people is the truth is there's a lot of opportunity in sports, and we are a nation that has not excelled regionally or continentally. We've excelled globally, and there's clear room to grow generations of sporting stars across various platforms. It hasn't been happening at the level that we want to see it happen. Now, part of the Sporting Act, the Sports Act, is an academy of sorts. The big question, how do we reach young people on the ground who are so talented? And some of the stars we see today, the Wanyamas, they started in high school and grew out of high school competition. How do we start to encourage that to grow generations of sporting personalities?
Julie, I don't think we have words enough to really put out there what the capacity that sports has to turn around people's lives, to influence people's life, and generally to run an economy. Sports is huge. It's a multi-billion dollar business the world over. If you look at FIFA, for example, FIFA has more members than the United Nations. That should tell you something. Sports is big the world over. If you look at the money that different sporting organizations, the Olympics, the International Rugby Board, FIFA, like I've mentioned before, if you look at the kind of money that they turn over just in terms of sports, it's huge. If you further look into the industry and look at people like the broadcasters involved, the sponsors involved,
yourselves being a big part of putting Kenya's sport on air.
And the amount of resources that they're putting into sports is really multi-billion industry. What we don't lack in this country for a moment, we don't lack in talent. I mean, we have Daniel Adongo, who 1 year ago was playing rugby in New Zealand. Now he's playing American football for the Colts. That's huge. That shows you that we have those kinds of people here. You might say it's a flash in the pan, but then that shows you that, hey, look, these opportunities are there.
Right.
You have Wanyama playing in the Barclays Premier League. If we start talking about the achievement of our athletes, we'll go on until the chicken come home to roost. The talent is amazing. What we then lacking is clear structures in terms of management, in terms of implementation, administration of sports in this country, to then ask, how do we nurture this talent? How do we grow it? How do we give them clear pathways into sports? Where do they start from? And where do we want to see them ending? The unfortunate thing is a lot of the big stars that we are seeing in this country at the moment are what I'll call flukes. There's not been really a concerted effort that someone can put up their hands. If you look at our athletes, for example, maybe what the world says, we are just natural athletes. You cannot see anyone putting up their hand and saying, this is the clear pathway.
Right,
this
they made it in spite of,
exactly,
not because of the system.
We've done it in spite of. The Wanyamas of this world, the Marigas of this world.
And so it boils back down to leadership, how the Sport Act is implemented, and also I would imagine leadership at county level. And so we'll be watching, already some governors have mentioned their interest in growing sports in their areas, and we'll be watching that. We've got to close now, but before we do, we want to give a shout out to the athletes who've made us proud. We want to say hongera to them. Who are the stars when it came to sports for Kenya in 2013?
For me, the big ones, Ezekiel Kemboi, he never disappoints. Controversial. He really rallies the country together. He really pulls us together. He knows that he's a star. He knows that he has a role to play in terms of putting Kenya in the map. And he did it this year. Fantastic win in Russia. A big one for me is Victor Wanyama, for obvious reasons. I mean, you cannot take for granted what Victor Wanyama has done for this country, where he's placed us, the different way now that the whole world is looking at us in terms of having a star player in the Premier League.
An inspiration for so many.
Burundi has a player in the Barclays Premier League, but who knows? But everyone is making noise about Wanyama. I think that's a very big one for us. Wilson Kipsang winning the men's marathon and shattering the world record. I think he deserves a pat on the back. He really gave us the credit on the marathon front, especially with our neighbors, Uganda. Taking the Olympic medal and winning the World Championship. I think Kipsang saved face for us there. And the big one for me is Eunice Soom. Who saw that gold medal? None of us thought about it. I mean, that's the best thing that happened to us in that championship. From nowhere, she ran, she took that medal, and a fantastic one for the country. And lastly, Harambee Stars. Anyone who was in the stadium watching that game against Sudan in the final of Sekafa, that was brilliant soccer. That's amazing football. They played very well. They deserve to win that game, and despite everything else that anyone can say, Harambee Stars have really come of age. And I think if we continue giving them the resources and the backing that they need, the sky is the limit for them.
Thank you so much for making time for us. Julie. And of course, the list is not limited to those people, but hongera to all those stars and so many more who make us so proud of being Kenyan. Thank you so much. Asante. We're moving on with the news now. And South Sudan military has confirmed that thousands of youth loyal to rebel leader Riek Machar are marching towards the strategic city of Bor. Now, the United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon has said that the perpetrators of violence in South Sudan must be brought to book. He's called on the government and all concerned to ensure the safety and security of all civilians. Let's take a look.